I didn't say that. I very carefully didn't assume anything. I said, if you're not interested in violence, which means your children being destroyed, what are you interested in? Are you interested in some abstraction? But we are interested in violence. Alright, if you are interested, then listen with your heart and mind to find out. Don't sit back and say, well, tell us all about it. The speaker points out that to look at anger, you don't look at it with eyes that condemn or justify. Put that away. And you can't put those two away if this anger isn't a burning problem. I don't know if you've seen a picture in a newspaper, an incident in New Delhi. A man with a long stick is hitting another who is Chinese. Have you seen that picture? A crowd is standing around him, people with hands in their pockets, and these are the Indians who have been told for centuries not to hurt. You understand, sir? When you look at that picture, you realise what human beings are. And I am part of it, a human being. And I say to myself, how am I, who am responsible for all this? I feel responsible, you understand? I feel responsible. It isn't just a set of words. And I say to myself, I can only do something if I am beyond anger, beyond violence, beyond nationality. That feeling that I must understand brings tremendous vitality, energy, and passion to find out. So first, I have to learn how to look at anger. I have to learn how to look at my wife, at my husband, at my children. I have to learn how to listen to the politician. I have to learn now. You understand, sir? I have to learn why I am not objective, why I condemn or justify. I have to learn about it. I can't say, well, it's part of my nature. I must know. So I have to tackle the question of learning. What do you think is the state of mind that learns? Silence. Silence? Do you learn Italian when you're silent, or French or German, a language which you don't know? You can't be silent. You buy the book, you read it, all the verbs, the irregular verbs, and go into it. In the same way, we have to learn. You don't assume that first I must be silent and then learn. Here is something that you don't know. You don't know how to look at anger. Therefore, you have to learn. And to learn, you have to study why you justify, why you condemn. You condemn and justify because it is part of your social structure, part of your inheritance. It's the easiest thing to do, to condemn or justify. You are German, out, or you are a Negro. You cannot associate. That's the earliest thing to do. But study means care. You must love the language that you are studying. When I'm angry, I see that physics and chemistry are going on inside me. Of course, chemical changes are taking place when you're angry, but knowing chemical changes are taking place doesn't stop you from anger. One has to discover something much more fundamental. Of course, sir, but to discover something much more fundamental, one must have the capacity to go deeply. If one has a blunt instrument, one can't go deeply. Now, what we are doing is to sharpen the instrument, which is the mind. The mind has been made dull by justifying and condemning. If I see that I can only penetrate very deeply, when my mind is as sharp as a needle, a diamond that can penetrate very deeply, then I demand such a mind, not just casually sit back and say, how am I to get it? But I want it as I want my next meal, and to have that, I must see what makes the mind dull, stupid. What makes the mind dull is this sense of invulnerability which has built walls around itself. Part of the wall is the condemnation and justification. If the mind can be rid of that, then I can look, study, penetrate. I feel myself responsible for violence, but I'm surprised that many people here don't seem to feel it. What are we to do? What am I to do, sir? I don't care whether they take it seriously or not. I take it seriously, that's enough. I am not my brother's keeper. To me, as a human being, I feel this very strongly, and that's all. What can I do? I will see that in myself I am not violent. I can't tell you or somebody else don't be violent. It has no meaning unless you yourself want it. 2nd of August 1967. Dialogue 3, August 1967. Yesterday we were saying that we would go to the very end of this problem of violence. To do that, we have to be quite serious and put our mind and heart into it, so that when we do analyse the nature of violence, we are not only examining it intellectually, verbally, but also seeing violence in ourselves, as aggression, anger, hate, enmity, and so on, and becoming aware of that violence in oneself to see if it is at all possible to go above and beyond it and never come back to it again. never in any form be violent in oneself. Most of us take pleasure in violence, in disliking somebody, hating a particular race or a group of people, having antagonistic feelings about others. There is a certain pleasure in this, which I think most of us are aware of, but I don't think we realise that there is a far greater state of mind in which all violence of any sort has come to an end. In that there is far more joy. I dislike to use the word enjoyment, than in the mere pleasure of violence with its conflicts, with its hatreds and fears. So, if we are at all serious, we should, by discussing, by the exchanging of ideas, thoughts, feelings, we should discover whether it is at all possible totally to end every form of violence. I think it is possible, and yet to live in this world, in this monstrous, brutal world of violence. We took a part of this violence, which is anger, and we were trying to find out how to meet it without suppressing it, sublimating it, or accepting it. We said that it is quite an art to look at anger without any justification or condemnation, to look at ourselves without accepting or denying, to see ourselves exactly as we are, is quite a difficult thing to do, and therefore one has to learn how to look. If one knows how to look at violence outwardly in society, wars, riots, the nationalistic antagonisms, the class conflicts, then perhaps we can observe violence in ourselves, sexual ambition, aggression, the violence of defending oneself, then perhaps we shall be able to go beyond it. So can we, in dialogue, in conversation, seriously go into this matter? Unless you are 100% serious, it has no value. When one is hungry, one is very serious. Here is a complex problem which has existed for centuries upon centuries. Man has been violent. Religions have tried to tame him throughout the world, and none of them have succeeded. Perhaps Buddhism and at one time Hinduism tried to bring about a human being who was not at all violent. But if we are going to discuss the questions, we must, it seems to me, be really very serious about it, because it will lead us into quite a different domain, into quite a different way of life. And I do not know if you want to go that far, or merely play with it for amusement, for entertainment, intellectually. So, shall we go on with what we were discussing yesterday about violence?